and moderator Benjamin Evans of the Black Male Engagement Network.
Hello, 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 how you doing? If you're having a good time, make some noise. All right, now before I get started, I want everyone to take out their phone. Real quick, take out your phone. I'm talking to you, that means take out your phone. Yes, take it out. I want you to get with your neighbor, and I want you to take a Ussie. And I want you to put on a really big smile. I want to see y'all way in the back. I want a Ussie. I want you to smile real big, and then I want you to post it and hashtag MBK Rising. All right, I only got a few minutes. I know you got your pearly whites and your greens and your golds and your missings and all that good stuff. All right, let's pull it back in, pull it back in. I wanted to capture your big smiles so that you can refer to this picture every time you feel a little bit uncomfortable or uneasy about the conversation we're about to have. So when we feel uncomfortable, go back to that picture. I was smiling at one point. All right? So while MBK's mission is to centrally focus on the challenges faced by boys and young men of color, we recognize we cannot solve the challenges facing boys and men of color without addressing interconnected issues like race, gender, and sexual orientation. We also know that issues faced by boys, girls, and gender nonconforming youth are often intertwined and deeply related. In the wake of alleged sexually abusive behaviors of some prominent men in Hollywood, and with the huge support of movements such as Me Too, the idea of toxic masculinity has become more prevalent in broader society. So for the next few moments, we will discuss what our boys, what our men, and what our movement must do to address toxic masculinity and to be better keepers of our sisters and our LGBTQ family. The Good Men Project gave me a really good breakdown of toxic masculinity, which is a narrow description of manhood defined by violence, sex, status, and aggression. It's the cultural idea of manliness where strength is everything while emotions are weakness, where how many people you've been with and your body counts are yardsticks by which men are measured, while supposedly feminine traits, which can range from emotional vulnerability to the effeminate, are the means by which your status as a man can be taken away. And if you were here yesterday, you know President Obama talked about this a little bit when he mentioned the 8 girls twerking and why you really need that. So we're going to get started. Now, I know this room is full of men who take care of their sisters and their LGBTQ family. You can give it up for yourselves. When I came out at a national conference, hundreds of men embraced me and told me they love me. But we're going to dive into this conversation so that you can take this conversation home with you and help others better take care of our sisters and members of our LGBTQ community. Can we give it up for this amazing panel? I mean, this is history right here. And I want to open up the conversation with how do we first create safe spaces for men to have these conversations, and how do we kind of get rid of all the titles and humanize this conversation? Anybody is welcome to take it.
I can say that community is comprised of all these various institutions, big and small. So from the local community organization to the larger church to the city, but any small place where you can gather, just have some real conversations. And I can tell you that in our city, Compton, we started an open mic, and now we're layering community conversations to just introduce a topic so that we can talk. And so any place that you can gather a few people and have a real conversation, you will be amazed at what can happen with just talking to one another. And when you open yourself up to be transparent and vulnerable and real, you can really help change each other's lives, because we are a community. We're connected.
For me, I would say I think it starts within the homes and within the homes of African American parents. I think that the ideals and the thought processes of individuals not being of the social norm should leave the minds of everyone, because as African American people, we were never of the social norm to begin with. So once we address that, then we can move forward in addressing toxic masculinity and how we need to know that it's something that we just don't need to possibly address. We need to be in a space where we feel comfortable, and also be in spaces where we need to know that we can talk about these things versus not talk about them, and encourage our younger brothers to be able to talk about it and not be afraid to address the feelings that they have when they're asking questions. So, yeah.
Thank you. Anybody else?
How's everybody doing? Great. It makes me happy to see you. You're the right now and the future. And it just touches my heart. I had to say that. So I wish I could meet each one of you, and I can't. So they're my words. A safe space is an interesting concept, but a brave space, that's what we can have. And the more we do that, yes, talk about a brave space. When I go into a room with people who know that they want to work through their racism, they must be brave. They can't make excuses for behavior that no longer works for them or anyone. And so as I talk to young people are brave. They're willing to go there. And I'll never forget talking to young men about, well, how can I respect women more? That's a brave question. So once we're in the conversation, though, we need to stay in it, and that takes courage. Because the modeling that we have all had, the socialization we've all had, is geared toward violence. So no one in this room is at fault, because nobody created the systemic violence that we now live in. But the good news is we can change it.
Amen. Amen. Our friends at Mentor, the National Mentoring Partnership, today launched a new free resource to support MBK Rising attendees, that means everybody here, and mentors everywhere to unpack toxic masculinity and promote healthy expressions of manhood. Everyone can grab it at mentoring.org/masculinity. Now, this guide helps mentors support boys and young men as they define their gender identity. Mayor Brown, if you were having a one-on-one with any of these young brothers out here, what would you tell them that women need from men?
I believe that we as people, we need authenticity. And a big component of toxic masculinity is this false front of who you're expected to be and who you believe society expects you to be. And so I believe that it's critical for us to be able to have men that can identify who they are with your own identity. And I want to say that again because the world or society will try to define who you are. And so you have to take the decision and be intentional about defining who are you as a person, and stay true to that and walk that out and respect who you are as a person, because I believe that once we know who we are as people, then you can get to the point where you can start loving and respecting and honoring other people. But it takes you knowing who you are so that you can value yourself. Because when someone values who they are as a person, it automatically identifies and lays out how you answer questions, what decisions you'll make, what you will do, what you will not accept. And so having your own identity is critical, but defining it for yourself is crucial, and it's something that we need. And I would say, just please, if you can do anything else, and as was said earlier, it takes courage to be who you really are. And when we see people that are breaking ceilings and barriers in their own respective spaces, it's because they didn't follow the norm. And so really think about who you are as an individual. There's only one you, there will only be one you. And so your purpose to affect some kind of change where you are. And we need you to be your authentic self.
Absolutely. Now, staying with you, when My Brother's Keeper was first started, you know, there was a little bit of backlash from the sisters. You know, what about the sisters? What about our Sisters Keeper? And so how should the field of people working to advance the outcomes of boys and young men of color communicate that they understand women's issues and have not excluded our sisters?
I would just encourage the men to continue to work through this space that you're in. And for the sisters, we have to recognize that we are balanced as a family, as a community, when each respective person walks in their strength. And so I take a step back and I recognize that in order for our communities to be balanced, in order for our relationships to be balanced, our families, we need men to take some time and strengthen themselves. And so it's okay to take that time to focus on yourselves. And with men focusing on strengthening who they are, in turn, our communities will be more whole. Our future is going to be more balanced because we have to have the feminine and the masculine, and not the toxic masculinity, but the feminine and the masculine to create that balance that we see, especially in places of power where they're, and I think that taking a step to acknowledge President Barack Obama and Michelle Obama, the image of the two of their dichotomy is so powerful because there's a balance, and each respects the other. Yeah. And while one is definitely powerful standing alone, two is unstoppable. And so we need men to walk into their power so that we can continue to be who we are without threat of feeling insecure, without a threat of feeling that we're beating someone down or that we're not allowing them to prosper and blossom into who they're created to be. So we need that balance, and men deserve to take that time just like we do.
Thank you. Yes. Alicia, as a queer black woman, you work to challenge the misconception that only straight black men encounter injustices in our community. What do we need to do to make sure our LGBTQ family sees themselves in this movement and are uplifted as a result of it?
How y'all doing? Thank you, I see you. So what if I told you, every single one of you in here, that you're artists? Yes. That you have the power to create and recreate? And I'm telling you that because I think, frankly, gender is a construct. It's something that was created for a function. And that function, right, was essentially to ensure that some people had certain roles, other people had other roles, and that kept an engine going. But I think what we know as families of color, as people of color in this room, is that we never really got to take advantage of all the positive benefits of those roles. And so we've always been artists, creating and recreating for the purpose of having dignity, for the purpose of being able to be in a world that doesn't like us, with our heads held high and our shoulders thrown back, and we're like, we out here doing it anyway, right? So I want to challenge us then to think about gender as art, as something that we can continue to create and recreate so that it isn't toxic. We can build a world that isn't predatory, right? And that doesn't kind of siphon humanity from other people for the basis of our own humanity. And I start with that because I think it's important to talk about that when we're talking about how to be more inclusive of queer people. I don't want to be included. I don't want to be included. I want to be with you. I want to be connected to you. But I don't want to be there as an afterthought. I want you to recognize that I belong here and that you're better because I'm here. Yeah. And I'm better because you're here.
Come on. Come on.
And as long as we're able to engage with each other in that way, we don't have to ask questions about how can we include you. Because I've been in many rooms where I'm the one queer person because we needed a queer person and we needed a black person, and they're like, oh, cool, we got all of it right here in you. But then at the same time, even though I'm there, I'm not respected, I'm not seen as a human being. And in fact, I can tell you stories about being in rooms where we're talking about black liberation, and people are like, yeah, for everybody but you.
Wow.
That's a real thing. So if we're going to be artists, my question to you is, how do we create a world where everybody belongs exactly as they are? How do we do that by also saying, we're not going to put ourselves in these weird boxes that we didn't build? We're going to design our own way of being together in connection, in relationship, because our survival depends on that.
Well, that was a nice panel. We can all go now. Whew. All right. Wow. Let's let that marinate for a moment. Man. MJ, you are one of the new faces in Hollywood. Give it up, give it up. Representing trans women of color. And you've been featured on some amazing magazines and all over the world. And after you were on the cover of Out magazine, our good brother LeBron James posted a message in support of you, but he received a lot of backlash. He said there is nothing more in this world more powerful than colored women, and that his daughter is watching. What do you wish more people understood about the trans community, and how can we as men make sure that we are here for and fight for our trans brothers and sisters?
Well, I like to think of myself as a person based off of love. And when LeBron James did that, I thought that was quite amazing, because not a lot of African-American men address these things out in public. And he is someone who is so assured in who he is. He had no problem doing that. And I feel like we need to challenge more African-American young men of youth to do that even more, and to be on our sides, and to understand us as women, as strong women. I need you to repeat the other part of that question, because I want to really divulge in that.
How do we as men stand up for, be here for, and fight for our trans brothers and sisters?
And I think representation is key. I mean, Mayor, she said something very important. We have to understand that there's a balance. There are a lot of misogynistic words that are thrown to us, and we are the minority of the minority. And I know these women understand that, because they are African-American women, and they are of a minority as well. And I think that young men need to understand that, and understand that we are alongside of you. In order to move a culture forward, we have to band together.
Thank you. Absolutely. First of all, Ms. Harris, I am honored to even be sitting next to you. I am here today because of you, so thank you. Gillette released an ad inspired by Me Too that asks men to work to end sexual harassment, support boys emotionally, intervene if they see bullying, and re-examine the phrase, boys will be boys. And would you believe that there was huge backlash claiming that Gillette attacked men? Right. How can we reframe the conversation about masculinity in a positive light and promote healthier behavior from childhood?
Well, there's so much I could say. What I will focus on is the way I raised my two sons. I'm not your typical set of identities. I've been married, my partner now is a woman. I have 3 children. They do not each have the same fathers, not because of promiscuity, as is the stereotype. You following me? Yeah. But because of these embedded assumptions that we're walking around with, we don't know necessarily how to support boys and young men in being exactly who they are. I told both of my sons, if you ever feel that you are attracted to the same sex, it's fine. If you ever feel like you don't understand what it means to be with a woman talk to me because I was a single mom. I was mom and dad, all in one. How many of you are raised by single moms? So I had to do everything and talk about everything, and it was important for me to do so. And it was also important for me to look at my own stuff if it came up. I always say that freedom is an inside job. And it doesn't begin out here. So in order for me to have those conversations, I had to be secure in who I am and all my coinciding identities. And we throw around a lot of words, but one of the most horrific things is the toxicity in which children are expected to live. That's horrible. And so we can do our part to raise little girls who feel like there is nothing that is beyond them to do, and raise little boys who feel the same way. And think about simple things like toys. What are our expectations based on our socialization? Do we expect boys to be a particular way? Yes, we do. We expect boys not to cry. That is inhumane. That is toxic. That's violence. Because what that means is that we're asking a human being to sublimate and suppress human emotion. And we ask little girls to be ladies. I don't even know what that is. I really don't. And because I was one of the people who always questioned these roles when I was a little girl. And thank goodness my mother, bless her heart, she would help me out. She didn't know how, but she would at least let me ask questions like, why I gotta sit with my legs crossed? So all of this, I hope I'm trying to be as focused as I can, is important. Leaders can be, and mentors can go anywhere in conversation, else they shouldn't be leaders and mentors.
Thank you. So, as these young men and young women and even our leaders are going to go back into their communities, I want to leave them with a charge from each of you. My charge is, surprisingly enough, as a gay male, I had some prejudices against drag queens and people in the trans community. And so I had to deal with myself and my inner prejudices, and I went and volunteered at TransCon, which is a conference that matches employers with members of the trans community, and I made some amazing friends. I saw each as human, and I'm still in touch with them today. So I had to deal with me in order to make my community better. And so I charge you, whatever your prejudice is, face it, deal with it. What is your charge, starting with you, MJ, for these folks going back home?
Well, I mean, I would challenge every young man that's in this audience, and including men that are adults, when you see a woman of my experience that is going through something, instead of standing by silent or idle, I challenge you to protect her and make sure that she's okay, because a lot of the times we're not okay. There's an outstanding amount of women who are of the African American, women of color, of culture, who have been killed because something was not done. And it was all because of how we identified. I would challenge each and every one of you to make sure that you protect us and let us know that we're all right, because we're already letting you guys know that you're powerful, and take your place. Take your time, know how strong you are, to make sure that we as women need to be protected. That's all.
And 30 seconds, right?
I got 2 calls to action. So one is for us to move towards being the keeper of our people, recognizing that we each have our own individual and unique experiences, but we're more powerful together. And my second charge to each of us is to love in public. One of the reasons that we know that trans women in particular are being killed at astronomical rates is because people are afraid to love in public. One of the reasons that we know that violence is impacting our communities in such a deep, deep way is because we are afraid to love in public. I have a friend who told me that he sits hunched over because he tries to make himself small. He's 6 feet tall and black, like black, black, black. He's holding that in his body every single day, hunched over like this. Love in public, so that you can also be an invitation to be loved in public.
I would challenge each and every one of us that when we see each other, check on each other. I can't think of how many times people just walk by each other and don't even acknowledge each other, don't even say hello, don't even acknowledge that we are here in this space, we're human. And beyond that, the acknowledgement, and I was going to also say love, because love is so powerful and transformational, but to love, respect, and honor. And I challenge you all to think about how you can honor the people that are in your lives, in your spaces. And honor is a step past respect, because you can respect someone inwardly, but honor is the external affirmation of how you feel about someone internally. And so I challenge each and every one of you to honor not only yourselves with your decisions, but honor each other in the spaces that we're really blessed to inhabit. And whether or not that's in the street, classroom, at your jobs, in your communities, in your homes, I mean, there's no place that you can start too small. And so just honor each other, love each other, and just see each other.
I want you to know that you are immensely good. You're brilliant, like the sun. You are of value on planet Earth. I don't care what anybody ever tells you, that is the truth. You are wise beyond measure, even if, as we say, you're young, which is another construct. So therefore, live your life in love. And if you do, because you're all very good people, you will be kind and good to others. You will check your privilege if it arrives. You will ask your brothers to check it also. And you can do it with compassion. I love the idea of loving in public. Begin it now. Love is a great power. Use it to transform your world. Thank you.
Can we give it up for this amazing panel? Thank you so much for your time, and remember to love in public. Thank you.
Oh, we love you too.
We do not have a crime problem in Detroit. We have a relationship problem. If we can build strong relationships, we reduce the crime that goes on in that city. Black Family Development is a comprehensive family service agency. Our mission is to strengthen and enhance the lives of children, youth, and families through partnerships that support safe, nurturing, vibrant homes, schools, and communities. We use a restorative practice as a process of learning how to resolve conflict and how to provide for young people a sense of fair process.
Detroit is on trajectory to become the first restorative city in the country. We started that one community at a time, and Black Family Development has been blessed to be able to scale that up and bring service delivery to that.
Black Family Development, in our opinion, is the perfect organization to lead this work. They've been working in this community for over 30 years. They have addressed various aspects of work around challenged and marginalized families and specific populations within that ecosystem. The work that they do with restorative practices is nothing short of remarkable.
The mission of My Brother's Keeper is very aligned with ours because we're about inspiring those whom we work with. Much of what we do is about unity. It's about connectedness. It's about relationships, and it's about strengthening communities. And we're all working on a very common goal, a very common vision, at the right level, for the right duration. We can change the scale for our young people. And so this funding will help us do that.
My name is Alice Thompson, and I am the Chief Executive Officer of Black Family Development. As a woman in this movement, my vision is, for boys and young men of color, is to really remove barriers that hinders the dreams and opportunities for boys and men of color. I am proud and committed to this work because this is my divine calling. It's a ministry of love that is focused on opening doors of opportunities and also partnering to build our beloved village on behalf of boys and men of color. My message to you is, be a loving part of this village work by joining the village sisters, the daughters, and mothers as we stand in the gap and to close the barriers of pathways for boys and men of color. I am my brother's keeper.
Hi, I'm Linda Gibbs. For 20 years, I had very powerful positions in New York City government, supervising health and human service agencies. I witnessed in those jobs how well-meaning people in organizations that are devoted to supporting those in need could still marginalize and even demonize and criminalize young men of color. I devoted myself to unraveling the forces of structural racism by using my power to shine a light, to raise attention, and to take action. As a principal now at Bloomberg Associates, which is a nonprofit consulting group assisting mayors internationally, we embraced President Obama's call for mayors to develop My Brother's Keeper local action plans. And we've worked with over 24 cities to achieve their mayor's visions. My message to you is this: this work cannot be done without us, women. We dominate the front line of the work. Over 3/4 of social workers, teachers, nurses, nonprofit employees are women. More than anyone, we have to get this. If we don't get it, the experience of our young men will never change. This is a business in which women need to make room for men. We can do better. We must use our power to change our institutions. I am my brother's keeper.
My name is Antoinette Malvo, and I'm Managing Director of Strategic Engagement and Initiatives at Casey Family Programs. As a woman in this movement, my vision for boys and young men of color includes a society in which their value and greatness is acknowledged, appreciated, and celebrated on a daily basis, and as an integral part in which our society functions on a day-to-day basis. I am proud and committed to this work because I view this as my civil rights moment, where I have the opportunity from the many seats where I sit to create conditions that positively impact lives, to create a ripple effect, generating, magnifying, and geometrically multiplying that impact. My message to you is this: to understand that as a woman in this movement, I'm your partner. Understand that your success is my success, and my success is your success, and that together our collective success is the strength of our community. I am my brother's keeper.
Buenas tardes. Soy Cecilia Gutierrez, Deputy Director of My Brother's Keeper Alliance at the Obama Foundation, where I lead our network and partnership team. And I have been proud to lead the My Brother's Keeper Rising Planning Team. I want to begin by asking you to join me in acknowledging my incredible colleagues at the Obama Foundation, partners, host committee, steering committee, youth committee, and our volunteers who have worked tirelessly to ensure MBK Rising was worthy of the incredible youth and community leaders in this room. As a Latina with immigrant parents from the Dominican Republic, as a mother of 2 black boys, as a leader, I am determined to do my part to ensure that the future of our children will not be defined by their zip code. I'm honored to be a part, thank you. I am honored to be a part of the My Brother's Keeper movement, to join the growing and powerful voices around this country who are working to advance equity and opportunities for boys and young men of color. My message to you is this: we must remember that our children, that our boys and young men of color need to be told daily that we love them. All of you in the audience, we love you. We are working to dismantle racism in this country because we love you. We are breaking down barriers and lifting up the voices and clearing paths to opportunity because we love you. We are here, all of us together in Oakland, because we love you. Te amamos. Yo soy el guardián de mis hermanos.
Yate, Karababra, Pinishe, Ashin, Ashley, Natani Bashishin. Good afternoon. I'm the founding principal of the Native American Community Academy and the NACA Inspired Schools Network in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And I currently serve as the Deputy Secretary of Identity, Equity, and Transformation for the students in New Mexico. As a Navajo and Lakota woman in this movement, it is our community's collective vision that boys and young men of color are academically prepared for college so they can pursue their passions, secure in their identity, and healthy, holistically well, ready to lead. I'm proud and committed to this important work and movement because of my relatives, our nephews, our brothers, my father, our grandfathers, our ancestors, and the generations yet to come. My hope for you is that you stay rooted, grounded in your language and culture, that you have a lasting positive impact on your community, while keeping an open heart, a soulful spirit, and a strong vision that stems from the love that surrounds you in this room today. Ahehe Iwopila, I am my brother's keeper.
Hello, my name is Keisha Lance Bottoms, and I am the mayor of Atlanta. As a woman in this movement, my vision for boys and young men of color includes my 3 sons and the future I hope they will have, and the young men and boys who look like them will have. And that is a future that includes equal opportunity to be all who God created them to be. I am proud and committed to this work because the generations are counting on us to get it right. My message to you is this: do not grow weary in well-doing. Continue to stand in the gap for our children, for our families, for our communities, for our boys and young men who have been counted out before they've had a chance to be counted in the game of life. In the words of Audre Lorde, revolution is not a one-time event. I am my brother's keeper.
I am my brother's keeper. Yeah. That didn't work. Woo! Thank you, everyone.
If you watched the news or spent any time on your phones last month, you might have heard about a recent ad from Gillette that went viral. Gillette's trailblazing campaign shed a light on the way toxic masculinity impacts our society and left us wondering how we can build a positive narrative surrounding masculinity. Joining us now is Damon Jones, Vice President of Global Communications and Advocacy at Procter & Gamble, who will share more about what went into this groundbreaking piece.
Good afternoon. I'm Damon Jones from Detroit, Michigan, and I too am my brother's keeper. You know, growing up in Detroit as a boy, my mission in life, as much as I had one, was simple. Have fun, eat cake, win games, and don't get caught in between arguments between my three sisters, lest it become 3-on-1 real quick. A bit older, I grew curious and started to ask questions, lots of them. Why this? How that? You see, I wanted to learn as much as I could about the world around me, so I explored. Some things I should and some I probably should have left alone. As a young man, I became more aware of the surroundings around me. I became more aware of my mother spending nights and weekends in union politics. My father struggling to build and grow a business so that he could provide for us on his own terms. And seeing my grandmother show acts of love and care and compassion through her gifts of food, often on Sundays after service. You see, she was the church mother. It was clear, though, that when the time was right, I would choose my own path. But their example always guided me to do my best, not anyone else's, my best. Fast forward as an adult, I'm blessed to help lead a company that is one of the world's largest advertisers. Beyond products and jobs and work in our community, perhaps the most powerful thing that we do is through advertising that positively impacts billions of lives around the world every day, while promoting accurate, positive portrayals of women and peoples of color. We call that being a force for good and a force for growth. But we know that being our best means helping others be theirs, even when it's not popular. A few years ago, through a program with Always, we helped change what it means to do something like a girl. Once a slight, it's now a badge of honor that really embodies all that today's women's movement has become. More recently, we spotlighted racial bias through an Emmy Award-winning program called The Talk. You know The Talk. You had it from your mother or your father or the lady down the street, right? That tough love, the lessons on life and reality to sometimes just help you understand the hard, harsh reality of what it's like to grow up a black or brown boy or a black and brown man in America. You see, consciously and subconsciously, like film and TV, advertising shapes how we see the world, how the world sees us, and importantly, how we see ourselves. These messages, these images, these words, they matter. They can make us laugh or cry or pause and think. And done well, they inspire us to be the very change that we know our world needs. But you see, for too long, we've all focused on a very narrow definition of what it means to be a man. Aggressive, fearless, always winning, and never crying. But the reality is masculinity alone does not make you a man, no matter how you define it. Coming in first doesn't make you a champion if you bully your way there, and getting to the top at the expense of others isn't worth the journey because you'll be there alone. So we're challenging ourselves, thank you. We're challenging ourselves and each other to change that narrative, not only for us, but for the future generations, like my nephews, who will repeat our words and who will repeat our actions. We're challenging you to break free of a single definition, to embrace an identity that allows you to be you authentically, live your best life, and be your best self with integrity, empathy, and respect. You see, it requires more than just handling your business, though. It means helping others handle theirs, even when they don't look like you, even when they don't love like you, and even, especially at times, when the deck isn't stacked in their favor. So with that, I want to share with you our point of view, told through the eyes of Gillette, one of the world's biggest male brands, a more positive version of masculinity, celebrating men stepping up and stepping out to be their best, our best, the best, as men we can be.
Bullying.
The Me Too movement against sexual harassment.
Masculinity.
Is this the best a man can get? Is it? We can't hide from it.
Sexual harassment is taking over.
It's been going on far too long. We can't laugh it off.
Who's the daddy?
What I actually think she's trying to say.
Making the same old excuses.
Boys will be boys. Boys will be boys. Boys will be boys.
But something finally changed.
Allegations regarding sexual assault and sexual harassment.
But she says it's
And there will be no going back. Because we believe in the best in men.
Men need to hold other men accountable.
Smile, sweetie. Come on.
To say the right thing. To act the right way.
Bro, not cool, not cool.
Some already are. In ways big
Yo, men,
and small.
I am strong.
I am strong.
But some is not enough.
It's not how we treat each other, okay? Okay.
Because the boys watching today will be the men of tomorrow.
Powerful, important, and incredibly relevant. Thank you to Damon Jones for that gripping speech. We see every day how pervasive stereotypical views of masculinity are, and how media and art can reinforce them. But it doesn't have to be that way. We can write new narratives, tell new stories that represent who we are and who we can be. We can share rich portraits that break stereotypes rather than reinforce them. That's why I'm so excited to introduce this next panel. Across 3 movies, Ryan Coogler and Michael B. Jordan have taken Hollywood from hashtags Oscars so white to a Best Picture nomination for Black Panther. They honored Oscar Grant's life with Fruitvale Station. They revived a beloved franchise by starting one of their own with Creed. And they forever put an end to the myth that movies made by Black people, starring by Black people, can't be successful. In fact, they can make billions. Please welcome Ryan Coogler and Michael B. Jordan in a conversation moderated by Rashad Robinson.
So we have a couple more minutes, but I want to first, no. I am Michael B. Jordan and Ryan Coogler are coming out in a second to have an incredible conversation with us about narrative and building narrative power and what that looks like. Narrative, yeah. Thank you to the planners for setting me up this way. But I want to first start off by saying why we're having this conversation. Why is narrative so important? Narrative is about the rules and norms of society. What is possible, what is visible, what is invisible. In so many ways, it is about power. Who gets to tell stories and who doesn't get to tell stories? And when our stories are told in full, rich, and creative ways, it has the ability to create empathy, to bring people together, to change people's minds, and to even change policy. Far too often, people see inequality in our country, whether it's poverty or racism or injustice, as unfortunate, almost like a car accident. rather than unjust. And when people see inequality as unfortunate rather than unjust, they work for charity alone instead of justice. They stop at sending water bottles to Flint instead of cleaning up the pipes. They stop at reentry instead of ending mass incarceration. They pat themselves on the back by cleaning up inner city schools instead of changing public education in our country. The stories that we tell and who gets to tell those stories is incredibly important to how we change this country. And so the conversation we're about to have with two of the most important, creative, and powerful storytellers is at the heart of what we need to be talking about to change this country. I have the privilege every single day to lead a civil rights organization called Color of Change. Powered by 1.5 million black folks and their allies of every race, Color of Change works behind the scenes in the entertainment industry and out front across policy around this country to change the rules, because power is about changing the rules. And mistaking our presence or our visibility for our power is how we can sometimes get into harm's way. And so what we want to do is have a conversation simply not just about presence, but about power, about changing the rules, and about making justice real for all of us. So please welcome to the stage Ryan Coogler and Michael B. Jordan.
How y'all doing? Hello, hello. Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
So we've got all that out of the way. We've got the I love yous. We've got some pictures. I want to jump right into this conversation because we don't have a whole lot of time, and I want to make sure we can dig into a couple of different themes. And the first is, it's Black History Month. And oftentimes in Black History Month, we are told the stories of the pathbreakers, the first, the people who broke ground and changed the country. But in so many ways, conversations about narrative need to not just be about the first, but about how can just everyday people get to live their lives. How black and brown men and women can just be in society and live. And Fruitvale Station, the first film you all did together, was such an incredible, such an incredible portrait of just the concrete and day-to-day harms of what it means to be black in America, and the ways in which the benefit of the doubt is not oftentimes extended. And I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that and sort of the path to making that film and what that has meant to you all as we think about Black History Month and as we think about being here in Oakland and Oscar Grant.
Yeah. No, yeah, I think for me, I'm from here, you know, grew up in Oakland and also in Richmond, and and I think Oscar, when Oscar was murdered, it affected me deeply, just like it affected everybody, you know, that was in the Bay Area at that time. It affected folks all over the nation, but I think it affected us the most, you know. And because at that time I knew I wanted to be a filmmaker, I was interested in exploring that story in that medium, and I wanted folks to have a chance to be brought in closer proximity to living, you know, 24 hours in a day of a life of a guy like Oscar Grant. You know what I mean? And just kind of seeing that, you know, it's a lot of beauty in our lives. It's a lot of normalcy in our lives, you know, but it's also a lot of pre-existing things that bring a lot of added pressure that's outside of our control. And so for me, that story was just about a young man coming of age, and on a day where he didn't know he was about to lose it all, you know, or like as opposed to having lost, like having it taken away from him, like he did, you know. So that was what it was about, and I was often struck by, you know, how absent those types of portrayals were from the films that I watched coming up. You know, it didn't really match up with my surroundings growing up in Oakland and in Richmond. I didn't see people like my mom, or people like my aunties, or people like my friends, and like people like myself, other Oscars on screen as much. So I kind of felt a duty to try to bring that, you know, as a filmmaker.
I guess for me, not being a writer-director at the time and looking for a project that I was able to actually express myself. I was like really frustrated when, the news broke and I didn't really have too many outlets to express myself. So it just so happened that, I ran across, Coog and that script, and it was the perfect kind of representation that I was looking for. I didn't really see that many, movies out there that represented somebody that looked like me, and being able to embody that just a day in the life of, something that wasn't, propaganda pushed, that wasn't what the media told me to think of, when they see black people, on media or, on the television or on the big screen. So it was a portrayal of Oscar's life that was just, this is what it is, take it or leave it, And it was, for me, it was the perfect opportunity for me just to express myself as a young black man and as an actor.
We've been doing a lot of work around trying to push this idea of tell black stories, and you could, tell brown stories, tell stories that are authentic, not just taking characters and painting diversity at the end, but making those characters sort of authentic. I'm interested in sort of two questions. One is, just for the young folks in the room, when did you all know that you all wanted to tell stories? And now as folks who are in the industry and building power, what do you look for as you're trying to tell stories? What type of stories do you look at as producers to get behind, to tell, and what do you hope to say through those choices?
I think for me, the first time I realized that I wanted to tell stories, it was an evolution. I think I started out as just wanting to act, just wanting to be in front of the camera, or to play characters that I didn't really see that much on screen or on television. And then I think right around the time I got on Friday Night Lights and I started, hanging around like other writers and directors that kind of planted that seed of an idea in my head. It was like, what, you can create these stories, you can produce these stories, you can write and have more of a ownership stake in what's being told. And I was like, wow, okay, I can produce, okay, I can write, I can help, cultivate these stories. And then I think over time, it just, lobbying my power in front of the screen to get leverage behind the camera, realizing that I had something of value that I could barter and trade off for those opportunities to produce those stories. And I think for me, being I love sci-fi and fantasy. I love, I grew up watching all the, the Lord of the Rings and the Harry Potters and all, all those fantasy, films, but I never saw anybody that looked like me. I mean, I imagined it. I still enjoyed the movies. I'm still really big fans, but I always wanted to kind of create and kind of bring our own African and black mythology to the big screen and to the small screen as much as possible. So those are kind of the projects, along with coming to age stories like Fruitvale Station. But yeah, I got a big sci-fi appetite. So those are kind of stories that I'm really interested in telling.
For me, it's like. Coming up out here, we tell stories all the time. You kind of like gotta be a storyteller if you're from the Bay Area, especially if you black. So like we sit in barbershops and in classrooms. That man, what happened was, this jumped off the air and that, boom, boom, boom. So it's kind of naturally ingrained in you. But the first time it was like a formal thing, I think was I was 17 years old. I was in my first year of college, and I had a professor at St. Mary's College, which was like up the freeway in Moraga. I had a professor there named Rosemary Graham who recommended that I get into writing screenplays after reading an assignment that I did for her class. And as far as projects that I look for, until recently, I've only been, writing and directing. I've started producing other things, and I just look for inspiration. Like I look for ideas that I can't get out of my head. You know what I mean? Like you hear about it and you fall asleep and you wake up the next morning and you're still thinking about it. Or filmmakers that you meet who feel like they have a fire kind of burning inside them. Maybe a fire that you recognize as a creator, and you think that their voice is interesting and the world would be better for hearing from it. So that's kind of how, that's kind of been our guiding principles.
Yeah. So, you all have been working together on projects for years. I like to look at this audience and think about what can be created by seeing all these faces who are coming together here and what they can be building as they work together. My best friend since my late teens is Michael Smith, who runs My Brother's Keeper. And what brotherhood has meant for me, and in a world that oftentimes forces us to be in competition, where the narrative can sometimes be that you can't trust one another. I'm just interested in sort of what has this partnership, this relationship, you all being able to work together and build together meant, and what do you want to say to the folks, young folks out in this room as they're setting the course of their careers about what does it mean to be, in conversation, in movement, building with someone?
I mean, I think, look to your left and look to your right, look behind you, like those are people, those are your peers, they're talented. Get to know them, ask them questions, what they like, what they don't like. You might be aligned with them in a lot of different ways that you never even thought possible. Like technology nowadays allows you guys to go out there and be filmmakers and storytellers with very minimal. You can grab that phone that you're recording, taking pictures on right now and go shoot a short film. You can go shoot a small doc. You can create, you have all the tools that you need to create, but don't always look above you to go collaborate. Look beside you. Build with your peers, build with your friends, because those are the people that when you look up 10, 15 years from now, they're going to be on that next level, and you're going to already have that relationship and that bond there. It's going to make it a lot easier for you guys to collaborate. So I mean, when it comes to me and Coog, it's honestly, people come into your lives for seasons, for certain reasons, and at the moment you don't know how long the person's gonna be alive or anything. And I was like blessed enough to meet this guy at a time of my life where it just made sense. Like if we were in high school together, we grew up together, we would have been best friends at that time. We would have hung out. We're both competitive. We're in sports, and you can still keep that competitive nature with your brothers and your sisters, and still collaborate together. It doesn't mean that, oh, I got to compete. That means I got to win. You got to lose. It's like, nah, let's go be competitive and just try to make the best that's out there. Period. You guys are both gonna win. So I guess that's our natural approach to it. We're always trying to find things to collaborate. And as an actor, I never really had that. As an actor, you always need other pieces to make art. And I was always looking art. I didn't know I needed that counterpart. And I guess growing up in the film industry together, I found my counterpart that just made sense. And he's a brother of mine. Our families are really close. We're from similar places, and I can't stop bigging him up. He hates compliments, so he's a genius, man. He's so talented, man, bro. He's like, what I'm saying? This is the guy right. Yeah, man. No, but he's but that's kind of how we did it, I guess.
I think I think like if you want to be an artist, and not even an artist, like a community organizer, like if you want to build anything that's going to affect people, and anything that'll has a potential of existing long after you're gone from this place, you got to do it with other people. You know what I mean? Like you kind of have to. That's kind of how the world works. It's how we work as human beings. So I think Mike is 100% right. When he says like look around, find folks who you can relate to, who are like you. And they don't have to necessarily be from similar backgrounds. Like me and Mike lucked up. Mike's from Newark. I'm from out here. They 3,000 miles apart, but they very, very similar, types of places. But, we also have friends who we collaborate with who are from totally different parts of the world, you know what I mean? But we relate in that we love film, you know what I mean? Or we love, we think the world can be better in a certain way, you know what I mean? And are excited about the opportunity to leave our mark, and you find those folks and you get to work, you know what I'm saying? And you grow and you get better and you form relationships, learn things from each other. And I don't know anybody in our industry or in any other industry where that hasn't been the case, you know what I mean? If you go find the best chef in here, you know what I mean? They'll tell you about the sous chef that they worked with, the chef they trained under, you know what I mean? They friends they were in the kitchen with, who they still share recipes and compare things. You know, so that's really what it is you know, find your group, find your collaborators, you know, and look around you, you know what I mean? And that's really where they, you know, that's really where they are. And about the competition aspect of it, you know, I came up playing sports, you know, very competitively, man, and played with a lot of cats from out here that you'll know. Like, I grew up with Marshawn, you know what I mean? Like, I'm buddies with Andre Ward, you know, like, what was fortunate about playing sports at that age was that you know what real competition is. Like, when I line up between the hash marks and football, somebody got to win, somebody got to lose, you know what I'm saying? But filmmaking is not like that, you know what I'm saying? It's just totally not. So, you know, it might be a couple roles that you're going out for as an actor that, you know, maybe somebody else gets that, but, you know, there'll be more, you know what I mean? And there's no reason why you can't continue to work with people that the industry might want to fake like you're in competition with, you know what I'm saying? And what we found out about the industry from talking to older folks who have been working in it long before us was it was a lot of false competition. There was a lot of false barriers. People would get in between, you know, certain actors and certain filmmakers and say, hey, man, you maybe shouldn't work with him. They can maybe take your shine, or they can take some capital from you. You know, we kind of found that that's all kind of not true. You know, it's actually more for you if you work together.
Yeah. And another thing you got to remember is what's for you is for you. You can't nobody take that away from you. You can't take that away from nobody else. So, like, just know that, like, your blessings are going to be your blessings. Like, that's it. So just try to be the best person you could be. Karma's real. Give out to the universe, and it'll conspire to make it happen for you. I really believe that. You know?
They're like those stories that the world tells us, and those are stories that we repeat to ourselves as well and repeat to one another. And all those stories, right, come together at times and shape what we believe and don't believe. And whether it's true or not true, it does have an impact. And that, right, in many ways is part of the narrative. And there's a lot of conversation in Hollywood right now about diversity. And, you know, Michael, a lot of that is about in front of the camera, but I know, Ryan, you'll say that just as much, or it's even worse, looking at statistics behind the camera. If you look at directors and writers, you know, I'm interested from you, Michael, and then I'll have you, Ryan, to jump in too. But Michael, tell me a little bit about what you think in terms of what needs to be done or what can be done to spark more change behind the camera as you're doing more producing.
You know, for me, you know, people always like, you know, look at the, you know, what's the final product, you know, what's on screen. Oh man, I need to see myself, which is extremely important to dream, extremely important for you to see yourselves, you know, in non-stereotypical ways on film and television. I think that's really important. But also when you get in a position of power or you get like a little bit of leverage to help create opportunities for other people. You know, I think that's really, really important. And it's something I always promised myself that once I got a production company, I would be able to do that, which is why I'm also really, really excited to announce a partnership with my Brother's Keeper Alliance and the Obama Foundation, and we're starting an outlier fellowship, you know, an internship, you know. So we're gonna, you know, select, you know, certain young, you know, black men, people of color, you know what I'm saying, people from underrepresented groups across the board, and place them in major companies throughout the entertainment industry. So that's something that I'm really, really excited about doing, and it's that type of nepotism, is that type of synergy, is that type of, you know, reaching over and giving opportunity. Now, I still expect that 10,000 hours. Being an outlier is putting 10,000 hours, putting time into your craft and mastering it, you know? So when you do have the opportunities, you're prepared, you know what I'm saying? So the hard work, you can't cut any corners of that. This is a fellowship, so you have to work and you have to earn it, you know what I'm saying? But at the same time, we want to be able to give you, you know, angles and opportunities and places that may not have been available, you know what I'm saying? And the fact that I'm in this position, that we're in this position to kind of like help open those doors a little bit, you know, that's always what I wanted to do. So yeah, there it is.
Ryan, we are we're here in your home, and I also just think about, you know, when I do think about representation, think about what narrative can do to create an idea of what's possible, give people images that they never imagined, and you helped to bring us Wakanda. And I'm just interested in anything you want to say about what's next for the audience here. Or anything you can say. Yeah. Yeah.
I can't say anything about anything that's coming next. But what I will say is, how much we appreciated the support that everybody showed the film. Like nobody saw that coming. You know what I mean? And it meant, it meant the absolute world to us. Because if it's not for our audience, it's meaningless. You know what I mean? And you guys gave it that life. Out here we believe that like loose lips kind of sink ships sometimes. I can't really talk about what's going on. But I think you guys should know there's folks hard at work to bring y'all something that we could be proud of.
That's enough. Thank you. I wanna end on a final question for you all. I start off by really talking about the difference between presence and power. And in this age of social media, sometimes folks can think the Instagram post is the work, or the tweet is where things started and stopped. And you all, not just through the hours that you have put into your craft, to building your businesses, to creating opportunities for others, but you've also found opportunities to work with my organization and others to find ways to encourage other folks to be able to have their voice in politics, in culture, in advocacy. And I'm just interested for the folks who are gonna go back into their communities as leaders and are gonna have an opportunity to bring what they've learned here, to not just talk about what happened, but to be what's gonna happen. Advice that you can share, advice that's been helpful to you about what does it mean to walk with your power, to use your power in a way that ensures that all of us move forward together.
It's a good question.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think, the biggest advice, some of the best advice that I could have for you guys as you going is try to listen to the folks around you that have your best interests at heart. And I would say try to pull from a diverse group. It's my brother's keeper. You know what I mean? But I was just backstage. It's a bunch of women running this thing. You know what I'm saying? And making sure that it's going. It's hard to trust organizations that don't have, that don't look like the world. You know what I mean? Like if it should be a lot. It should be gender representation in your camp, and you should be, have your ear open to everybody and every perspective. Still following your heart. You know what I mean? But making sure that you got people around you that'll be honest. Because I think the more successful that you get, if you're fortunate enough to find success, you will find that people stop being as honest with you. You know what I mean? Like Mike can probably tell you how hard it is to get somebody to tell him the truth and the whole truth. You know what I'm saying?
Y'all like the sweater? Be for real. Be for real. You like the sweater?
If y'all don't like it, y'all gotta tell him.
People never say no. They never say no anymore.
I like the sweater. Yeah.
Thank you, man.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, we good.
But I would say try to build a diverse base for yourselves, and people that got your best interests at heart, people who can be honest with you.
And that's great advice. And I think another thing is to fail fast. I think fail as quick as you can so you can learn as much as you can and be able to come back stronger and better. I think that's really, really important because people are scared to take risks. You can't really play it safe because you have a lot of people out there that's willing to go the extra mile and take those risks. And if you're not able to kind of, to be on that same wavelength and get to failure as quick as possible, I think you'll be in a much better place. So I guess that's That's my advice on that aspect.
Ryan, Michael, thank you for being you. Thank you for everything that you all are doing for all of us in this room. And thank you all for everything that you're going to continue to do to build power. Thank you.
Thank you, bro.
We don't want to deal with symptoms. We want to actually get to the root cause of the problem so that boys and young men of color in our communities can reach their full potential.
At Nepean Community Center, we provide a litany of different programs and services to give people the necessary tools for them to be self-sufficient and successful and productive citizens. That is why we have embraced the My Brother's Keeper initiative, so that we can begin to address those challenges that they face on a daily basis.
Mentoring for the MBK Alliance is extremely important because we all need mentors. People need someone to show them which way to go. Not necessarily how to get there, but a good direction helps.
I didn't really have goals in my life, but after joining MBK, now I actually have goals. I want to become someone. I want to go to college and actually, help out that community that was there for me.
A large part of the work that we have to do is actually just helping them to understand that they do have great potential. No child, regardless of where they come from, regardless of their ethnicity, should be limited in their opportunities.
Plus $18 an hour. The juvenile justice system is overwrought with young men of color. We work in a correctional facility on a weekly basis, and it's packed to capacity. The MBK Community Challenge Initiative will give us the necessary resources to hire dedicated people to oversee and to run this program. This initiative enables me to now give these young men an opportunity that I didn't necessarily have when I was coming along, so that they can be the absolute best that they can be.
What's up, my brothers keepers? I am proud to be joined on the stage by my brothers and my sisters and my mentors. These incredible people lead some of the nation's most powerful organizations, working to reduce barriers and expand opportunity for our boys and young men seated in this room. These fearless, that's right, these fearless leaders will share where this movement has been, where this movement is going, and what each of you can do to make sure it continues to grow, thrive, and open endless doors of possibility for our boys and young men.
Hi, my name is Dr. Jim Bostic. I am my brother's keeper. I was born in New Rochelle, New York, but given away at birth by my biological mother. And there's not even a father's name on my birth certificate. After having my right eye put out by some kids thinking it was a joke, I was blinded at 11 years old for life. I had to endure being in foster care and having one eye. However, it didn't stop me from making it through high school and college and even playing in the National Basketball Association. Because I had caring men and women in my life that mentored me. Currently, I serve as the executive director of Nepean Community Center in Yonkers, New York. The mission of our agency is to empower children and families and to reach their fullest potential. Over the past 76 years, we have gone from a storefront serving about 100 children between 3 and 6 p.m. to a multifaceted agency serving approximately 30,000 children and families per year from age 4 all the way up to senior citizens. Our agency now serves Yonkers, the entire lower Hudson Valley of New York, and 5 countries on the continent of Africa and Haiti. Thank you. We just completed building 2 facilities on the west coast of Africa. The greatest challenges we faced in our fight to support boys and young men of color is helping them to see the greatness that lies within each of them and fostering hope among these young brothers. Many of them are trapped in an inner city syndrome and can't see their way out. They are fighting against generational curses. To create a world where our boys and young men of color know they matter and can reach their fullest potential, I believe we must cancel our photo ops and our press conferences, change our wardrobes and put on our boxing gear, because we are going to have to fight for the change and opportunities we desire for them. Our boys and young men of color need to know that, like Medgar Evers, Malcolm X, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., or Harriet Tubman, Fannie Lou Hamer, and Rosa Parks, there are people in this movement that are willing to put their lives on the line that these boys and young men of color might walk in the purpose that God created for them. Will you join me today and commit to becoming one of those leaders?
My name is Sean Dove, and I am my brother's keeper. I serve as the CEO of the Campaign for Black Male Achievement, a national membership organization that seeks to ensure the growth, sustainability, and impact of leaders and organizations working to improve the life outcomes of Black men and boys. CBMA invests in and supports hometown heroes and sheroes, leaders just like each one of you in this room here today, intergenerational leaders across the nation that are fighting every day to ensure that all young people, no matter their race, ethnicity, or sexual identity, are able to realize their full potential. You know, 2 years ago, while attending the first Obama Foundation Summit in Chicago, I picked up a sticker that now resides on the top of my laptop with the words of President Obama that challenges us in this way. I am asking you to believe, not in my ability to bring about change, but in yours. I read those words every time I open my laptop, which happens to be every day. And I am reminded to believe in my ability to make change, and I extend that very same challenge to you today. I pray that your experience at MBK Rising has elevated your belief in yourself to make change, not only in your own life, but also in your community and across the nation. I hope your time here in the great city of Oakland has also increased your belief in your partners and allies, that together we can make the change we're seeking. Because we will not go as far as our dreams, we will only go as far as our teams. One of the mission mantras of the Campaign for Black Male Achievement is that Black men and boys don't need saviors. We need believers. Right. Believers in our potential, believers in our assets and abilities to make change and meaningful contributions to society. Well, what are you, my MBK Rising family, now believing what's possible that you may not have believed before you arrived in Oakland? There is no cavalry coming to save the day. We are the iconic leaders we have been waiting for, curators of the change we're seeking to see. The challenge before us, each and every one of us, after the MBK Rising lights fade and cameras disappear, is to hold on to that rising belief that we indeed together make up the cavalry for our boys and young men of color. And that change is possible if we love, learn, and lead with courage and conviction. I leave you with the words of CBMA's board chair, Tanya Allen, who's the CEO of the Skillman Foundation, who reminds us that this is hard work, and it is also heart work. But we can win if we make love our supreme master.
All right.
My name is Rhonda Soya Fat Bryant, and I am my brother's keeper. I lead Forward Promise, a national program of the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. Our vision is simple: boys and young men of color thriving. In 2 years, we've been proud to invest over $3 million in the programming and capacity building of 9 organizations that use cultural healing practices to create safe spaces for the growth and empowerment of our boys and young men of color. We're working with an inaugural cohort of Forward Promise Fellows, 20 amazing intergenerational leaders advancing healing for boys and young men, their communities, and themselves. The greatest challenge we face in our effort to ensure that boys and young men of color are thriving is the racial stress and trauma they experience from dehumanization every single day. To create a world where our boys know they matter and can reach their full potential, my call to action is for all of us to work together to end the cycle of dehumanization that is stopping our boys from thriving. Ending dehumanization happens in 4 critical ways. First, we must continually challenge the negative narratives about our boys and tell our own stories. These narratives influence how they see themselves and are the springboard for how people make decisions about them and the issues that impact their lives. Our boys are powerful. Our boys are gifted. Our boys are forces for good. That is the message that people need to hear. Second, we have to undo and heal the harmful internal feelings that are blocking the progress of our boys and young men. Not being connected to one's history, culture, and legacy, it's isolating and it's traumatizing, and the conditions that they face navigating the world each day are stressful. We have to support organizations that provide protection, restore hope, build positive self-image, and create power for our boys. Third, we must turn around the destructive patterns in our communities. When we understand that destructive behaviors or patterns are merely a response to trauma, then we will deal with our boys and young men of color more compassionately. We have to support organizations that use cultural healing practices to show empathy, give redirection, and provide the skills needed to take full advantage of the opportunities for another chance. There is power, healing, and restoration in our cultures. It's who we are. We must give that to our boys, all of them. And finally, we must overturn the dangerous actions in our society that harm our boys and young men. In every system that touches young people and their families, we see the examples of unequal treatment and outcomes. The practices and policies created at every level of decision-making in this country must be weighed for how they impact the lives of our boys and young men of color. Without this advocacy, they'll continue to be at the bottom despite our best efforts. There is a role in this work of ending dehumanization for each and every one of us in this room and everyone watching online. The path forward is clear. Let's support our boys and young men of color to heal, to grow, and to thrive.
Greetings, family. My name is Anthony Smith, and I lead Cities United, and our mission is simple. We work with mayors to make sure that all young black men and boys and their families grow up in communities that are safe, healthy, and hopeful. Over the last 8 years, we have been able to support over 130 cities as they create their comprehensive public safety plans, really redirecting and re-conversation around what we consider public safety. We have also been able to launch our roadmap to safe and healthy neighborhoods, a framework that helps mayors and cities guide their work. But we're most proud of, we've launched a fellowship, the Roadmap Academy Fellowship, of young people across the country between ages of 18 and 24. 7 of them are with us today. to really build the leadership of our young people across this country so that they can impact the work on the ground. The greatest challenge we face in our efforts to keep young boys and men of color alive, thriving, is the lack of access to opportunities. So we need to work hard to make sure that young men see themselves and opportunities in every city that they live in. To create the world where our boys and young men of color know that they matter and can reach their full potential, my call to action is to our elected officials to make sure that your budgets and policies align with what you say when you say you care about our young black men and boys. That way shows us that you care about our young black men and boys and their families, that you love them, and that you're going to do things to make sure that it's long-lasting and forever a part of what your city looks like. Thank you all.
My name is Eric Raymond Stegman. My family is from the Carry the Kettle Nakota First Nation, and I am my brother's keeper. My great-grandfather, George Jefferson Raymond, survived a boarding school system where he was forcibly taken from his family and disciplined for speaking his language and practicing his cultures and traditions. He ran away to Chicago and became one of the very first typesetters at the Chicago Sun-Times. And his son, George Jerome Raymond, became one of the very first American Indian dentists. My grandfather moved his young family to the Blackfeet Reservation, where he provided dental service for tribal members when the federal government was terminating its treaty relationships with tribes, starving them of critical services their ancestors fought for and were promised. My grandfather and great-grandfather embody the resilience of Native people and their nations. This is why I'm proud to lead the Center for Native American Youth at the Aspen Institute. Our vision is that all Native American youth lead full and healthy lives, have equal access to opportunity, and most importantly, draw strength from their culture and inspire one another. The cornerstone of our work is direct engagement with youth and their communities. We provide training and leadership development. We create platforms for youth to advocate in their own voice about the issues that matter to them. And we provide a space for them to heal and thrive. Our National Generation Indigenous Youth Network, launched by President Obama back in 2014, has over 2,500 engaged Native youth leaders who are drawing strength from their cultures, working across their communities to build power, and walking with their ancestors. The greatest challenge we face in this work is invisibility. We are resilient. We are hundreds of nations strong. Our young leaders are mobilizing movements across the country. But too often, our people are not at the table when it comes to the systems change that we're all fighting for. Our young men struggle in so many of the same systems that many of those of you in this room do as well. They face some of the highest disparities of discipline in school. They have some of the highest interaction rates with the criminal justice system. And in some states, they represent over half the foster care population, even though they're only a couple percentage points of the total population. To create a world where our boys and young men of color know they matter and can reach their full potential, my call to action is simple. It's to remember Native people in that struggle and invite them to your table. My team works directly with hundreds of Native youth leaders across the country every year who bring generations of strength to these movements. If you're at a campaign, if you're at a rally, if you're at one of your social justice tables, and you don't see our young men in that room and our young leaders, ask why and reach out. We're here to join your movement.
That's right. My name is Michael Smith, and I am proud. Thank you. And I am proud to serve as the executive director of the My Brother's Keeper Alliance. And I am my brother's keeper. My Brother's Keeper is proud to lead President Obama's continued national call to action to dismantle the unjust systems that keep too many of our boys and young men of color from reaching their dreams. Today, we work to help our partners build safe and supportive communities where boys and young men of color are valued and have clear pathways to opportunity. Since President Obama launched My Brother's Keeper in the White House 5 years ago, a national movement has grown, resulting in nearly 250 cities, counties, and tribal nations accepting the MBK Community Challenge, scores of new policy initiatives, and an exponential increase in private sector funding. Since the My Brother's Keeper Alliance became an initiative of the Obama Foundation, we've been proud to double down on what our MBK communities told us that they needed most. We've created new tools and technical assistance to strengthen the network and the leaders that are at its heart. We've launched campaigns to mobilize citizens and resources, and we wrote big checks, putting our money where our mouth is, to invest in evidence-based solutions and high-performing organizations to accelerate impact and scale what works. If we want to take this movement from good to great, if we want to tackle the suffocating legacy of institutional racism, if we want to honor the memory of Trayvon, of Jordan, of Oscar, of my brother, Tory Lamont Smith, who was killed in street violence when he was 27 years old, we have to be brutally honest with ourselves that good is not good enough. We have to stop investing in stale status quo solutions that can only talk about how many kids they serve, but can't talk about how many lives have been measurably changed. MBK Alliance will continue to spotlight, lift up, and invest in organizations and communities like the ones that you have seen on stage that are rooted in evidence and laser focused on results that change lives. And we need you, all of you, to join alongside us. Support them, invest in them, and demand excellence because our kids deserve nothing less. The final thing we have to do if we want to take this movement to the next level is always remember to put those we serve at the center. To never forget the phrase, "nothing about us without us," young men. To ensure the voice of our young men guides every plan we make and every step we take. That's why we will end where we began MBK Rising, listening to the wisdom and lived experience of our boys and young men of color. So please join me in welcoming 4 of our young leaders in conversation with the star of Netflix's Queer Eye and father of 2 incredible young men of color, Karamo Brown.